All right, hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, Play Fast Football. All right, today we're going to take a look at playing man-free, flipping the script. All right, and what I mean by that is trying to play a little bit more aggressive style of defense, and I'll get into that a little bit more when we do the video. Make sure you check out some of our partners, GameStrat, sideline replay system we use at Bishop Kenny High School. The two previous schools that I was at, we use GameStrat. Highly reliable, highly affordable. If you're looking for a sideline replay system with fewer problems, better customer service, make sure you check out GameStrat. Dome, the headwear company that I use for Play Fast Football. We use it at Bishop Kenny. They create completely customizable hats. They have an amazing online hat builder. You go online, you design your own hat, change the style, change the enclosures on the back. It could be fitted, it could be Velcro, it could be snapback. All right, put your logo on it, put embroidery on it, whatever you want to do. It's completely customizable. Check out Dome. Baker Sporting Goods company we use, players gear, spirit packs, things like that, coaches gear, sideline gear. Our uniforms are distributed from them. Fan stores or stores where teachers can get stuff. Our coaching staff here gets a lot of things from Baker Sports, so make sure you check them out. JustPlay, which is the playbook software that we use it for presentations, we use it for installs. It's the best play drawing tool on the market, in my opinion, when I do things on my Patreon site, or if I speak at any clinics, or if I do any Zoom stuff with people. I always use my JustPlay software because it is very easy to navigate and draw for me. So make sure you check them out. DifferenceUSA, the ultimate striking machine. Get thousands of reps without needing a partner. Elbows in, thumbs up. You can put them in your weight room. You can set up. There's ways that you can build onto your football field. You can just sink some cement into 2x4s and set them up on your football field. They can be moved around. They're versatile, so they don't have to be set in one place. You don't need a partner. You can change the coils inside of tension as the kids get stronger to make it harder to lev the pad in. So it's perfect for in-season and off-season development. Make sure you check out DifferenceUSA. And then CoachTools, player grading system, completely customizable. You set up the columns and the tabs the way you want to set it up. Makes it more professional, makes it look better for your players. Once you get it all set up, it makes it a lot easier for you to use and present to your players. So make sure you check out CoachTools. So, one of the things we talk about all the time, depending on the last 9-10 years or so, we've been doing these YouTube videos, and at one point we were 4-2-5, at one point we were 3-3 stack. But most of the time we have been some version of split field coverage, we've been some version of a quarters toolbox, and more often than not, the question I get from people all the time is, how would you line up to this? How would you defend this? How would you play that, right? So a lot of times offensive guys, all right, they're always going to ask you, hey, what would you do if we lined up in this? Well, the first thing I say is, well, you never line up in that, so why am I going to try and defend that, number one. Number two, if you know exactly how we're going to line up all the time, it makes things a lot easier on you, right? So when you're using exotic sets or formations, you always want to know how the defense would line up, because if you can draw that up and see it, then you can block it and figure out what plays you want to use. So one of the things I tell offensive people all the time is, for me, when I'm calling plays on offense, I would rather see defined pictures. I would rather see things that I know who's lined up where, who the overhangs are, what the coverage is. Says I want to be able to teach my players. When you get formations that become stressful on the defense, all right, it's hard on our end as a defensive coordinator or a play caller or a defensive position coach when we have maybe, let's say, a quarters toolbox and we're trying to teach all the adjustments and we start seeing formations that stress our rules out a little bit. That 100% is hard on the defense, but I think it's also hard on the offense because you have no idea how we're going to line up, and half the time you're asking questions, how would you line up to this? How would you defend this? Would this affect your rules at all? Because you're constantly trying to stress the defense. Or defensive guys will ask me all the time, hey, I really like certain structures, or I really like 3-3-5, or I really like broken stack. I like tight 3 high, but I hate it to 3-man surfaces, or I hate it to tight end wing, or I hate it to, certain sets. So that question coming from both sides of the ball, I know we like to poke fun, or at least I like to poke fun at my offensive friends because they're always asking me, how would you line up to this? Well, what if I did that? Well, yeah, if I tell you how I'm going to line up and if you said what you were going to do, yeah, you can draw up a good play, right? So the opposite theory of that in reality is playing man-free, right? So when you play man-free, the couple things you got to realize is you're always going to get lined up to formations. The toughest thing about man-free to me is when you get the exotic unbalanced formations and now all of a sudden somebody's ineligible and you've got to figure out, do you waste a player lining up in man-free covering somebody that's not eligible? Can your guys figure out if it's tackle over where the eligibles are? That's always going to be the tough part about man-free. But in reality, man-free should be the easiest way to possibly line up and play football, right? So as a defensive guy, one of the things I always talk about is, hey, we're going to keep the ball inside and front. We're going to limit explosive plays, okay? We're going to try and get helmets to the ball and get guys on the ground. We're going to make the other team snap the ball as many times as we can before they score points, right? Well, when you think about it, that's kind of a passive way to talk to your kids all the time. You're basically telling them, hey, we're going to do everything we can to not let the offense score points. We're going to do everything we can to not let the offense have big plays. We're going to do everything we can, all right, to not let the offense rip the ball right down the field. And in reality, that sometimes becomes a passive way to talk to kids. What if we talk to our kids and say, hey, look, we're going to do everything we can on defense to make plays. We're going to do everything we can to get lined up quickly. We're going to do everything we can to put pressure on the other team, okay? And we're going to do everything we can to make tackles for losses and try and create turnovers, create havoc, all right, and do some things that are more aggressive on the defensive side. So what I look at it is I look at it from a way to say, all right, well, when you look at, let's say, Ripley's match, I bring it up all the time, right? Because Nick Saban is probably, going to go down as one of the best, if not the best college football coach of all time, and one of the best defensive coaches of all time. Ripley's match was created because he needed a way to defend certain routes with man integrity that were beating up his cover 3 zone, but he also wanted a way to play zone concepts to certain routes that he didn't need man integrity. So one of the best minds of all time, who is, obviously is smart enough to figure it out, found a way that he could play man versus what he wanted to play man against, and he could play zone versus what he wanted to play zone against. To me, of all the, ideologies or schematics or of all the things that were created in the game of football, to me, that is one of the most ingenious things that could have ever been done. Hey, I need man versus these routes, but I need zone versus these routes. All right, and he found a way to develop that system to match certain things. But to me, when I look at that, it's not only the genius behind it, but what I look at it is one of the best in the game to ever do it said we need a way to match certain routes with man integrity. Because even he was smart enough to know, as good as offensive guys are nowadays, and even 20, 30, 40 years ago, as good as offensive guys are, they're always going to find a way to beat what you do. If they know what you do, they're always going to find a way to beat it, and they're always going to try and stay one step ahead of the curve. Right? So for us, we play tight 3 high, and teams will ask us all the time, well, how do you defend 21 personnel? Well, what if I told you we defend 21 personnel the good old-fashioned way by playing man-free, vicing the tight end, and now we look almost like a 46 defensive team? All right, so now we know we're going to get, all right, man coverage on the outside. Well, if we know we're playing man, we can spend more time teaching the fundamentals of man. If we know that man-free or zero is going to be a part of our deal, we can spend more time teaching the fundamentals of man. Where can we spend less time? Lining up. We know who the eligibles are. Where do we spend less time? Motion adjustments. Motion, what are we going to do? Okay, now, if you're a man-free team, then you could always decide that if you don't want to chase the motion all the way across, you can use your free player, and he can roll with motions, and then the other man player can come be the free player in the middle of the field, right? That's been going on forever. Teams have done that forever. But you've automatically eliminated half the time that you have to teach lining up the formations, how you're going to defend motions. For us this past year, I can tell you the hardest thing, I wanted to be a 3-high team that also played 2-high split field coverages. I wanted to go from tight 3-high, and I wanted to go back to 4-2-5 over front principles. The toughest thing for me to do was to figure out, would the motion adjustments be the same? How different would they be? How tough is it going to be to teach the motion adjustments in 3-high and 2-high? Okay, and can we play the same 3-by-1 coverages in both structures? That was the toughest thing for me to figure out, and the balancing act going back and forth to figure out whether or not we could get it done within our defense. It's where I spent 90% of my time thinking, struggling, getting frustrated in 7-on-7 stuff, in early practices in the spring. How much goes on for you to have to be able to line up the different formations in 3-high, 2-high, motions, bunch checks, empty checks, all those things that if you play man-free, line up and play. Okay? Now, it's never going to be as simple as that from a schematic standpoint. Obviously, there's going to be big play potential for the offense. Okay? If they get certain players blocked, then you have nowhere to send the ball. There's no free hitters to send the ball to. If you can't spill the ball, you've got to box the ball. You've got to make sure that you are constantly sending the ball back to where somebody's going to be because you're in a man structure. You're not going to spill the ball and send it to a free hitter with eyes on the quarterback, the backfield, or whatever in your zone concepts, right? Well, the other thing that you need to take a look at is if you're going to play with a free player, why not use the free player and gain him where you need to gain him? So most people use him in the middle of the field, right? He's an eraser, get guys on the ground if big runs break, defend the middle of the field for play action passes because we're playing man-to-man. All right, well, the first thing, maybe not so much in the 21 world, right? So if we're in the 21 world here and we're playing old-fashioned 46 deals, and we say, all right, look, we got the edges protected, the ball's not getting outside of that. We've got a vice on the tight end. Tight end's probably going to have to down block that. Otherwise, if it's a gap scheme world, maybe he'll work out to the Sam, and they'll try and kick the safety, so we got to work exchanging that. We've got a B-gap player there. We can take care of either A-gap with the nose, one side or the other, and move him. We've got a B-gap player there, and we've got two players in the box that can bracket those two backs, whichever way they go. And now if we're getting gap schemes or different structures, split zone, we can bracket it so we don't run into each other. If that back goes back, we can take it. I can take the front one. If we get full flow, I can now box the ball, send it back to you. And then we also have the free hitter in the middle of the field, right? So on paper, to me, there's not much better structure than that. All right, I've got gap integrity. I'm forcing you to declare how you're going to block certain things. I've got guys on the edge that give me edge integrity. I've got guys playing man that can take away easy throws. All right, so to me, from an aggressive standpoint on defense, that's one of the best ways that I could possibly play football. And if you turn on any game, I don't care what sets you want to watch, the more and more that I study in the offseason, if you turn on any football team from even to odd, from 3 high to 2 high to 1 high, okay, if you turn on any football team and you see spread, or you see 11, or you see 20, at some time in a college or a pro football game, you're going to see something. All right, now, ignore my writing because that's how we play tight 3 high, right? So that's Sam, Mike, Will. I play with 3 safeties, a left safety, a right safety, a middle safety, right? At some point, you are going to see that structure if you turn on football games. Every team I've studied, from 3 high to tight front to over front, 4-2-5, 3-4, every team that I've studied at some point in a game is going to get into that look, right? Because again, edge, edge, B-gap, B-gap, either A-gap, bracket both backs, man there, man there, man there, extra player. RPOs, go ahead and throw them man-to-man. There is no conflict player. You may win in man-to-man, but there is no conflict player, right? All your runs, all right, 7, you've got 6 blockers, we've got 7 defenders. Okay, the number one thing you're going to see all the time are people are going to say, well, what about quarterback runs? So now if we get quarterback runs, we can make it 7-on-7. Okay, you can make it on 7-on-7, but if you can add your quarterback, why can't I add mine? So if you can add your quarterback to the deal, why can't I add my middle safety? That's my quarterback. If I add mine to the deal, now I've got 8-on-7. Okay, well, if you do that, you're going to lose them in the middle of the field, and now we've got all these other things, all right? What about screens? What about... The beauty of the game of football is the more we talk about what we want to do, the more the other side can talk about how they want to beat it. Right? So if I line up in that structure, which I've played, thousands of times in my career, and I've given up, big plays in the running game. I've given up big plays in the passing game. I'm not saying that by lining up in that structure that I can defend everything they want to do. All right? That's what makes the game as good as it is and why we love coaching. Every time I draw something, you can draw something to beat it. But if I wanted kids to play hard, physical, fast football without a lot of thinking, this is probably about the easiest thing you can do, okay? So man-free for us on defense is a way to flip the script and say, hey, look, you know what? We're not going to talk about limiting explosives. We're not going to talk about keeping the ball inside and in front. We're not going to talk about making them snap the ball, all right, 13 times to go down the field if they need to score, if they're going to score. We're going to talk to our players about, hey, look, let's go after the offense. Let's make plays on defense. Let's be aggressive in how we do things. Let's get lined up and not worry about motions and trades and shifts and adjustments. Whatever they do, all right, it's a man scheme. Line up and play. Right? So at some point, no matter what you do on defense, no matter what your philosophy is, at some point you need to carry man coverages. Okay? It makes reads easier for the quarterback. Yes, it will. Yes, screens are going to be an issue. Yes, rubs and picks are going to be an issue. Yes, quarterback runs. There's going to be a ton of issues, but they're going to be there in quarters. They're going to be there in 1 high. They're going to be there in rip liz. They're going to be there in 3-3 stack. They're going to be there in 3-4. They're going to be there in 4-2-5. They're going to be there in over 4-3, college 4-3, NFL 4-3. Issues are always going to be there. Offensive guys are really good. Offensive players are really good. We're always going to have issues on defense. Okay? But the more we can go back to the simplistic version of playing man-free, all right, and just saying, look, guys, and I'm only, right now you got to understand it, I'm looking at it from the Sam Will Bear world, all right, but the reason I'm looking at it that way is just the simplicity of, all right, hey, what are you going to do if we give you bunch on one side, nub on the other side? How are you going to defend that in your tight three high package? All right, you're going to get questions like that all the time. What are you going to do if I give you tight bunch on one side, but I give you flank on the other side? How are you going to line up to that? Well, you're asking me how I'm going to line up to it because you want to know if you use that set, which you never have, all right, and maybe you never will. You want to know if you went to that set, how I would line up so you could diagram plays to beat that set. If that set is something you like to do or want to do, you should see it on film. Well, now when we get in the man-free world, it's real easy to go back and say, all right, well, here's what I think I would do. Let's see, so if I take a right safety there, we could flip the corner. Now, I don't flip corners a bunch, so that would be the issue. See, so right away, this is where the offense tries to get you, right? So I'm going to try and diagram it the best that I possibly can with the personnel that I have to get into double eagle, man-free, cover everybody, right? But put myself in the best situations. So for me, all right, the easiest way to do all that would be, let's get the best matchups that we can possibly get. Let's draw it up the best way that we can possibly draw it to make sure that we understand, all right, what are our best matchups going to be? The bottom line is I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players that have to get lined up to your 5 skill players. I've got 1 extra that I can use wherever I want them. Right? So no matter what set you drew up, okay, I just tried to put my guys in the best situation possible to say that, hey, you're going to defend a 1, you're going to defend a 2, you're going to defend a 3, you're going to defend a 1, you're going to try to stay. Mike linebacker for us would always try and play the running back. Right? Well, if that was the running back out there, then maybe we want to put the Mike out there. But when we start off in camp rules, we always say, hey, you've got 1, you've got 2, you've got 3. Okay? So empty sets like this are going to stress you from the point of being an alignment team. All right? But if we are trying to get lined up and to be as simplistic as we can, we could very easily keep that and say, all right, look, you've got 1, you've got 2, you've got 3. All right? If we get empty, corner's got 1, right safety's got 2, corner's got 1, we would press the point there. Left safety's got 2, technically the Mike would have 3. We don't want to use the Mike in coverages, so if it's empty, we just trade the responsibilities of the middle safety and the Mike, and now that's the free play. Right? So you could see that exotic formations, different formations, are going to make me think a little bit on the board of how I would line up my man players. But once I figure it out and I get my man players lined up, it's a lot easier to say, hey, let's go play football. Right? So man-free is a way for us to flip the script. It's a way for us to take some of the thinking out and get the offense not to say, hey, how would you line up to this? Where's the leverage? Where it is? This set right here, tougher for me to get my guys to where I want the best matchups. But as far as covering men, no, you got rules. I could put the Mike out there on 3 if I wanted to by rule. It's not a good matchup, but it would be easy for us to line up. All right, so man-free is a way to flip the script. It's a way to change some things on the offense and say, hey, you know what? Come out in all these exotics. Here's how I would line up. I would cover everybody up. I would send 5, and I'd have 1 free player. All right, it's a way for us to say, hey, let's go attack. Let's get after, all right, the offense. It's a way for us to say we want to win games on defense. Okay, I appreciate everything you guys do for PlayFast. Subscribe, turn the notifications on, leave comments, thumbs up. thumbs down. All right, I'm about to get the bell rung on me because it's the 7:30 bell. School's going to start in 20 minutes, so it's time to run. Remember, you won't play well until you play fast. I will see you guys next time.